This is Arts Alive. I'm Linda Philippi, and my guests today are Cindy Stolp, her daughter Ashley Stolp, and Ocean Shearer, and we're here to talk about a very exciting project. So, welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Cindy, you're the Teen Outreach Advocate at Henderson House.
I am.
Okay.
I've been there for 7.5 years. Started out as a volunteer and eventually grew to love the work and found my pull towards the teenagers. So that's where I ended up.
I think it's kind of amazing because, you know, many people run shrieking in horror from teenagers. And from about middle school, you know, onward, it's like, oh God, not teenagers. But, you know, you really do seem to have a calling for that, so.
You know, being a teen myself once upon a time ago, I remember a lot of the questions that I had that I didn't want to take to adults because, you know, I had to show that I knew everything. And I remember that feeling, and I still see the same things happening now with teens, that they have the questions, but maybe they don't feel safe or a trusted adult they have to confide in.
Do you want to talk about your program, about what you actually do for Henderson House?
Yeah, sure. Henderson House presents a 3-day presentation in health classes all around Yamhill County. Last year we served about 928 students.
And this is at the high school level?
This is at the high school level. Grades 9 through 12. And the first day is healthy relationships. So we talk about what healthy behaviors look like, what unhealthy behaviors look like. The second day, we do sexual assault prevention, which is really something different that we're doing as far as approaching it from a primary prevention standpoint. You know, typically what we do is we respond to victims who've made a disclosure. But what we're looking at is trying to prevent it from the initial perpetration. And part of the way of doing that is to getting in here to the kids and letting them know some of the issues around consent, how old you can be in the state, you know, to be even involved in any sexual activity. And we wrap up the third day with I like to call it game show review.
Okay.
And it's kind of a game show format, and the kids really love it. We ask, you know, does anyone remember my name? What's the phone number? And then we say, why do I ask that? You know, and they're kind of starting to get it now that I ask those questions so that they know where to call and who to ask for if they need the help.
So ideally,
that's one part.
you're trying to get to the kids before there's any kind of a problem.
Right.
And give them the tools that they need to stay safe in their relationships.
Exactly. And one of the interesting things that we found when we did the pre and post testing for these 3-day sessions was that about 55% of the teens were not able to accurately identify what sexual violence was. And you can see how that would open the door for actual perpetration to happen.
Absolutely.
And by the time that we hit the third day, and they do their post test, you know, I'm so proud of them, they came in at 81% were now effectively answering the questions in a positive way. And so we believe that by interceding in that way, that we're actually preventing, you know, unknown perpetration.
Right.
Because of maybe age, or if someone's under the influence, or, you know, did I have consent or not? So
Ashley and Ocean, I suppose that both of you have been through these classes at your schools?
Not at my school yet. We're starting it up at MACA next year. It's not going to be a during school thing, but it's going to be like a at lunch or after school activity. Where we make videos and go to social networking sites and we put stuff up to, you know, try and prevent sexual assault, or, you know, get the myths out, you know, say this is wrong, you know, this isn't true.
And what about you, Ocean? Have you been through the process?
The class that I took didn't offer the program, but I did get to help Cindy do it, and that was really good because I got to leave class for a little while and go help her. But
did you feel like you learned a lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was. I even before we actually went into the classroom, she helped me do a PowerPoint for the last day of it, part of the game show thing.
Okay.
And we went through all these questions, and there were some that I didn't even know. And I actually asked her, I was like, what is the answer to this question? And she helped me, and it was I felt really informed. I
Oh,
was glad that a lot of people are taking that class.
Do you feel like, I mean, that the information that's out there is effective in helping teens stay safe?
Yeah, for
Good.
sure.
Okay, that's great. So I want to talk a little bit more about your MACA project now, because I know that you've got a big thing that you're going to do, videos and all kinds of stuff going on.
The Teen Action Board is something that Henderson House has had in place now for probably 3 years.
Okay.
And really, it's only been one group of kids. And now we're opening that up because we see that there is a need for it, and peer-to-peer education works so much better. And what's great about MACA is that MACA is a Media Arts and Communications Academy. That's
Here
the-
in McMinnville.
in
yes.
McMinnville here, and that's the acronym for it. And they really focus on the digital media, graphic arts. Ashley really thrives there and able to her creativity to come out and do the things that she wants to do. So some of the things that we're looking at MACA and doing is a couple of videos, hopefully more, that kind of dispel those rape myths that are out there, and maybe Ashley could tell like what some of those myths are.
Yeah, you want to talk about that a little?
Like, she was asking for it by the way she was dressed, by the way she was talking, or you know, if you guys are both under the influence, then it's okay. You know, things like that where people really don't know the actual answer, so they don't really care that they're doing it.
Now let me ask you a question, because back in my day, which admittedly was 300 years ago, I mean, really seriously, it sort of was up to the girl, of course. I'm sure back in your day too, although you're a lot younger, but if anything was going to happen between you and your boyfriend, it was going to be up to you and me to prevent it. And I think that maybe the focus has shifted a bit, so it's more of a mutual thing and a lot more responsibility on the boy. Is that what's true?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's how it should be. I mean, it shouldn't be just the girl's decision.
Right. So what kinds of things are you going to do, like with the video? How are you going to do that? Do you have some pieces in place?
We're thinking of maybe just, some little funny things that'll get the teens or whoever watches them, get them laughing, but get the accurate information to them.
I think that's a good idea, because humor is what's going to hook them.
Well, sure, and I think having the peer-to-peer education in that way, it kind of takes out another adult who's lecturing and telling them what they're not supposed to do. And so really what I do when I go into the classrooms, and I don't want Ocean to underplay that she did that PowerPoint all by herself.
Cool.
By the way, and it was amazing. It really, I totally lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, one of the things I think is important when you're talking about the peer-to-peer is, I mean, I can just imagine walking into a room of teenage boys and having them look at me like I'm Grandma Blue Hair.
Exactly.
Like they just don't want to hear it. And so if they're hearing it from other guys their own age, I think that's one of the things that seems to be a real big trend in the movement against sexual violence is getting men involved.
Yeah.
As long as it's a woman's problem, we're not going to really solve the problem at its root, because most of the violence is perpetrated by men. So I think, bringing them in, and when they're young and teenagers, I mean, it seems like that would be really effective. Do you guys find that there's, at the schools you go to, that guys are starting to respond? Because, I mean, she's been at this for a while now, she said, 7 years, so.
Yeah, I think it's more that the guys understand that it's wrong. Some guys are understanding that it's wrong, so they're trying to educate the other guys so they know what's wrong and not to do it.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's really interesting because on that third day, one of the questions that we ask in the game show review is, I know ways to prevent sexual assault, true or false? And then they have to give, one of their answers. And I do provide candy as the motivating factor.
Well,
Works every time. They love me, I'm the candy lady. So a lot of the times what they'll say is, carry mace, walk in pairs, don't go out at night alone. And I don't give them the points or the candy for those answers, because I'm looking for a different kind of answer, which is exactly what you brought up, was that since the majority of the sexual violence is perpetrated by males against females, then what can you do as the male to prevent sexual assault? And we were talking about that, and what are some ways?
Actually educate them, to tell them what's wrong. Why do, girls have to be the ones who have to watch out and walk in pairs? Guys can walk in pairs too, when one guy is kind of like, hey, dude. The other guy can, hey, that's not okay.
Yeah. What about you?
Not telling the jokes, the jokes about rape and about pressuring girls into doing things. That's one thing that it hurts my feelings, it hurts other girls' feelings, because we know girls who have been on the other side of that.
Well, and the thing is you're in high school now, but in just a few short years or a couple, you'll be in college, and there's college campuses are sort of the hotbed of sexual violence, but there's that huge culture of drinking and partying, and unfortunately, sexual violence kind of goes along with that. So I think getting to the guys now, before they hit college, is probably your best chance of maybe I guess intervening and interfering with some of those potential behaviors.
Well, and the whole thing is, it's more than preventing sexual assault, it's preventing perpetration from ever happening.
Right.
So instead of telling the females, to carry mace and to be careful and don't drink at parties, and while we all know those things and they're good things to hear, rape and sexual assault won't stop until the people who are doing it stop.
Exactly.
So, we're working on that. And part of that is another thing that we do at Henderson House is we have healthy relationship groups for teens. At this time, we have about 8 around the county, including McMinnville. And those that have been in the groups a little bit longer are now taking leadership roles in their schools as a Teen Action Board member.
Oh, cool. Okay.
To actually be like that safe face in the hall if they had questions or they needed to talk to someone about what's going on in the relationship. Because data shows us that most teens will go to a friend
Sure, you
for
bet.
relationship advice, and we know that that's not always
Because they're so experienced.
and we know that they don't always have the best advice, and they're
Exactly.
going from their own role models, which may not be healthy.
That's right. I think about the movement in general, which, started long before you two were ever born, but 30 years ago when this movement started, I was actually in high school, and there really were no places to go for women if you were in a domestic violence situation, or if you'd been raped, and probably the police station was about the last place you'd ever want to go because, victim blaming sort of reigned supreme, and you would be run through the ringer, unless it was so cut and dry that there was just, no ambivalence whatsoever. But I think how times have really changed, and the idea that we're bringing primary prevention into the schools and thinking that this is a really important component of the work that you do at Henderson House overall. It's not just treating victims, but it's about getting right down to the kids, because I'm sure some of these kids have parents who've been victims of domestic violence.
Well, not only that, but they're also have parents that support those rape myths.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so, primary prevention, there's several levels. And one is the individual level. So we pick a group of kids, or we get to a group of kids that we can tell the accurate information, and we tell them a lot. A lot, and so they're saturated with that information.
Exactly. Saturation bombing.
But then we go out and we look at the societal level. What is it that we can do as a society, as a community, to change those levels of victim blaming. I just saw today, there was a rape story, and it was a band teacher, 17-year-old girl in Washington. She's actually within the consent law, but he was her teacher, and so it was labeled sexual misconduct. But what was interesting was that the people who were posting little comments were saying, well, she's old enough, she knows what she was doing, why is he in trouble? And part of that problem is not recognizing that there was a power structure there, that it's your teacher. I mean, how comfortable are you going to be saying no if he's been grooming you for months?